princes in their world that they're listening to. Maybe some of the artists that they hear through what I listen to or what Melinda listens to will, turn into that and be as iconic as Prince was. But, I say that with a lot of trepidation. I don't think that there's going to be. I think we are seeing the end of a sort of the icon era. And again, not to repeat myself too much, but while you'll see popular artists and you'll see artists out there that will go and be different and unique and break through and break out, you're not going to have as many of these types of icons. Will Taylor Swift on the female side of the equation, will she end up becoming as, sort of revolutionary and as and iconic as a Prince? No, I dare say you're not going to see a Miley Cyrus, in terms of male artists. Bruno Mars in terms of talent, but most people would say that a Bruno Mars is kind of a send-up of what Prince and Michael Jackson were doing before them. And so it's a sad day. It's a sad day when we lose an artist like this. And I wanted to take a moment to, as a bit of catharsis, because I won't be able to get into 16 minutes of talking about Prince on my show tomorrow. I'll spend some time on it. But I wanted to, sort of get out what Prince meant to me and how important his music was growing up. And hopefully, these icons, whether it's Prince or I'll keep going back to David Bowie, their music will live on and continue to influence future generations to come. And so perhaps we don't need another Prince. Perhaps Prince is Prince, and his music will be there and always be there and continue to influence for generations to come. We've certainly seen that with other artists. Bob Marley's been in the news over the course of the past few days, mostly because of the Snapchat debacle, doing that thing with my fingers, where people thought it was racist to go and make your face look like Bob Marley during 420, whatever. You still see his music influencing. You still see music of Led Zeppelin influencing, certainly the Beatles. And, those icons will always be there. I just question whether or not there will be new icons, and if we're past that, if we're past the creation of those types of artists that are that influential in the music industry, and I'm speaking specifically to the music industry, because I think movies you're still going to have directors that are going to be able to cut through, but in terms of how we consume music, the music that's being created, what it takes to get music distributed, and how people consume it, I think we're past we're past the point where artists like Prince have the opportunity to break out and become truly unique. I think a part of what made them unique was their lack of accessibility compared to where you're at now. And that's really funny because Prince left his label and became the symbol over an inability to put out more of his music. He was restrained at the time from being able to put out more albums because the record label didn't want to oversaturate the market. And so he didn't want to have how his music was put out into the world, limited. He wanted people to have access to it. And I think that's why you come to find out that he was doing all these concerts all the time. He'd go out on sort of regular smaller tours, but in certain select cities, he would travel and just do shows and invite his friends to come along and was very accessible to the fans. And again, an artist that was very different, weird. I think I put that online today. He was a weirdo, but he was a good weirdo, but was also seemed to be one of those artists that stuck to who he was and didn't go out and be an idiot about his fandom. So many artists go out there and just they're idiots about their fandom, and there's a sense of self-importance, and it didn't seem like Prince, and I could be wrong, but it seemed like Prince cared what people thought about him, but wasn't very pretentious about it. And losing somebody that talented, who was that influential at the age of 57, this is tragic. That's just really tragic. And again, he'll certainly be honored. And I wanted to take a moment to put down my thoughts, and more specifically from a perspective of somebody who, wasn't an uber fan, but just an average sort of, I guess I probably represent the average Prince fan who grew up at a time when Prince's popularity came into prominence. And so I wanted to speak to that person. Never saw him in concert, would have loved to. I remember following Depeche Mode during the 1994 Songs of Faith and Devotion tour at a time, before you're sort of online reading stuff, and I'm reading The Enemy from the UK and Melody Maker, and following their European tour and reading articles about Depeche Mode and the Songs of Faith and the devotional tour. And it was funny because Prince was touring at exactly the same time in a lot of the same cities. I think it was during the Diamonds and Pearls tour, but I could be wrong. But I can still remember reading Prince articles about his tour, even though I wasn't really, all following him all that much. But because they were in the same magazines that I was reading about my favorite band, Depeche Mode, sort of keeping up with what he was doing as well. And so it sort of melted into my psyche at a time when I was probably most paying attention to my favorite band in the world, Depeche Mode. So Prince will be missed, and his music will live on, and hopefully he'll be remembered for the artist that he is, mostly because he lived his life that way and, didn't really have scandal attached to him. And hopefully in his passing, there won't be that either. So thanks for checking out the podcast. I do appreciate it. Just wanted to get my thoughts down. And again, I can't spend 21 minutes on my show talking Prince, or else a lot of my audience is going to be like, dude, John, what are you doing? But that's why podcasts are so great. So if you're just checking this out for the first time, I do a Monday through Friday radio show. I put up all of the show up on iTunes. You can find my show on iTunes if you just search for the Jon Justice Show, and My Nerd World. Both of those are attached on my iTunes. Those are the weekend podcasts that I do, along with doing Dale Earnhardt Jr. race previews podcasts for NASCAR. I do a weekly Star Wars podcast, being a big Star Wars fan, and I often do movie reviews of big blockbusters that are being released. And so if you want to go and check those out, again, just go to my Jon Justice Show iTunes page, subscribe, drop me a rating. I'd appreciate that. My personal email is talkshownerd@gmail.com, talkshownerd@gmail.com, and you can also go to mynerdworld.com, mynerdworld.com, and that's where all of my podcasts are located. They're all separated via category. You can just click on whatever icon for whatever podcast you're looking for, and you'll find it right there. So thanks for checking it out. I appreciate it. And I hope that you, I hope you enjoyed it. And I enjoyed doing it. And bye.
My Nerd World.